we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the best movies of 2023 so far. At least my favorite movies of 2023. They might as well be the best films of the year, chat. And I imagine some of you guys have these films on your list as well. And listen, this year it's been like I think it feels like almost like every year now. Ever since 2019, it's like, hey, we've had a good group of good films and we had a group of bad movies, chat. But still, some really good movies nonetheless, and ones that I'm really excited to talk about with you guys as well. Of course, this list is subjective. You may like these films, you may not like these films. These are just movies that I think were quite good, and even defied my expectations and maybe even improved upon from other films, maybe other movies that were in these part of these franchise, or maybe these are just new films altogether, chat. But I just want to talk about these films with you guys. I think it would be a fun conversation. And these are not in any particular order, really just in the order in which they released, chat, so far this year. And this year is far from over again. This is not the end-all, be-all list. We'll eventually do that as we get towards the end of the year. Actually, when we get into like the start of the new year, 2024, do all those lists. But just what I've seen so far, go ahead and talk about these movies. And start with number one, chat. One of the best movies of 2023 so far, I have to say, was Megan, chat. Now, listen, this is a familiar concept we've seen, AI gone awry, combined with like a killer doll that goes awry and starts murdering people. It's like, yes, that's what this movie is inspired by, those common storytelling, tropes and, those same themes. No doubt about it, Chad. I mean, Child's Play in Black Mirror. Boom, you get Megan, Chad. But Megan was so thoroughly entertaining. I mean, remember when the trailers came out and they just captured the attention of the viewing public? I mean, it very, very much was in the pop culture side, because we've been going like, wow, this is like really funny looking. Just her popping and locking, chat, dancing and just slaughtering people the entire time. And we even have the emote. We have the double toasted emote of just Megan dancing. It's incredibly entertaining. And the thing is, the trailer's like, well, the trailers aren't going to live up to the actual movie. We've seen well-edited trailers before. We've seen very funny trailers before, but, they're never able to live up to, the movie itself's never lived up to, like, the marketing campaign. But I feel like this movie did, which is funny because, there's actually a rated R cut of the movie available now, which actually I do want to see. But even the PG-13 cut I found to be really entertaining. I mean, you had a number of great actors that did a great job in the movie, solid job in the film, but the star truly is Megan, chat. She is just so much fun in the film, and sometimes you're even like, you know what, Megan, you're on the right. Maybe you went too far, like murdering these people and ripping little kids' ears off and stuff and popping and locking while slicing and dicing, but It worked. I saw this movie twice. That's how much I really enjoyed this film, chat. And so, Megan, what a great surprise and a great way to start off the year, chat. I think in general, certainly last year and so far this year, like horror's been doing pretty well. It's always been one of my favorite genres, chat. All various subgenres of horror have I think been doing good since 2022. But man, what a way to start. And it's getting a sequel, chat. Megan 2 is happening. They're going to turn this into a franchise. And, we'll see. Maybe the sequel will be good. Maybe it won't. But at least the first movie, chat, really, really entertaining. Highly recommend. If you guys have not seen it and you're a fan of horror like me, certainly horror comedy. That's the other thing. I mean, I actually appreciated how they leaned into the comedy of the trailers, because there's just a lot of comedic situations in this film that just got a big laugh out of me and the audiences that I saw it with, chat. So great film. Highly recommended. And speaking of horror, chat, one of my other favorite movies this year is Scream 6. Now, you guys know I'm a huge Scream fan. The original 1996 Scream, directed by Wes Craven, is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love the sequel. I'm not a big fan of the third one. Fourth one, I've seen, like, recently. And I loved it. I think the movie's underrated. And then, of course, we had Scream 5, which, of course, Wes Craven did not return because, sadly, he had passed away. But we got a whole new, crop of filmmakers, new actors and stuff, but still carrying on the legacy of the Scream franchise and Ghostface. And I liked that movie, didn't love it, but I thought Scream 6 improved on a lot of things from the fifth film. One of my biggest issues is I thought a lot of those characters in the fifth film, like the new characters introduced, not that the actors were bad at all, but I feel like I don't know, they didn't interact all that much of each other. They didn't have them do a lot of interesting things. It's like, no, I can see that these actors are talented. It was more of a script issue. And I felt like with the sixth film, they really improved on that. It's like, hey, let's actually keep these actors together in a group, create a more interesting dynamic. They have more chemistry with each other, chat, and I found them infinitely more charming. And even was it Melissa Barra, who played like the main lead, yeah, because you had Jenna Ortega, but then you also have Melissa Barra. I believe that's how you say her name. Correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't really care for her performance too much in the last film. Here, they give her a lot more to do, and I really liked it. Also, this is probably like one of the vicious, bloodiest Scream movies, I would say. I mean, of course, this franchise has always been, pretty vicious and pretty bloody. But then, though, some of the kills in here I thought were very effective. Some of the choreography and the scenarios and the set pieces I thought were pretty good. A lot of just stabbing and just twisting the knife and just disemboweling people, chat. I really like this. And so, yeah, I mean, listen, it's not my favorite Scream film. It's still, I think I would still put one obviously. 1, 2, and 4, I think are still like my top 3. But this is definitely fourth. And I found this very entertaining. I really like this movie quite a bit. I'm interested to see how they're going to continue to the Song of 7, because like the fifth one, it proved to be a commercial success, but both of them are, critically pretty well liked, I would say, mixed to positive reviews. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do with the seventh one. And hopefully maybe they'll be able to bring back Neve Campbell, because sadly that was the way. I mean, I have a couple of the criticisms of this movie. You can check out my reviews. I go into more detail. Neve Campbell did not come back because of, behind situations where, she felt that she should have been paid more, which she should. She, like Ghostface, is the face of this franchise, and she deserves it. And I like Neve Campbell a lot. And so she didn't return for this sequel, which is too bad. And they kind of explain as to why she wasn't here. I was like, okay, that's fine. That's fair. But I do hope everything can be made up and they can bring her back for the movie. And she has a purpose. She has a purpose in that film. More so than like in the fifth one, So we'll see. But other than that, I really enjoyed Scream 6. That was really fun. And it was improvement. It was like the filmmakers saw my review and said, you know what? We're going to fix some of these things that Chris had issues with in the fifth one. And I feel like they did. They addressed a lot of my complaints. And I appreciated that. Moving on from Scream 6, and this is, Chad, it's too bad. This movie, I think, is going to be one of the most underrated movies of 2023 so far, chat. And I think it's going to be the blockbuster people are going to maybe gravitate towards after being disappointed by some of these other blockbusters that have come out in the last few weeks. But one of my favorite movies this year is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. I've talked about over the last few weeks, or it feels like a few months, the action-adventure subgenre, which is a subgenre of the action film, and how that subgenre has just kind of been languishing. It's kind of dying. I think it's been dying for quite some time. A subgenre that was kind of reinvigorated in the 80s thanks to Indiana Jones. And of course, you had other movies in that subgenre over time, Mask of Zorro, the 99 Mummy, the first Pirates of the Caribbean, which are like, oh, wow, these are like great examples of that subgenre. But I don't know, since that time, it's almost been forgotten. It's been overproduced. But Dungeons and Dragons made me realize like how much fun you can have within the genre. And what's so cool about this movie, chat, despite, yes, it is based in the world of, at least, D&D, it can be a little overwhelming sometimes for some people, but, yes, it is based within the world or adapted from the Dungeons & Dragons property. But what's so cool about this movie is you don't need to know anything about Dungeons & Dragons at all to enjoy it. It's just a fantasy epic. It's just an adventure film where you follow like all these different, this whole cast of characters, chap, from, Chris Pine to Michelle Rodriguez to Justice Smith to Hugh Grant, like everybody in here. And they have such great chemistry. Like they actually, feel like friends. You want to see them continue on these adventures. It's just so much fun. There's some great action bits, how they use CGI to showcase, the action, I think is great. But yeah, the thing is that I walked away from this movie, it's just like, wow, this is like really funny and it's really earnest. And I just like being with these characters. And I want to continue to be with these characters. And sadly, this might be the only time that we'll get to experience that, which is a shame. But yeah, Chad, this was so much fun. I liked the marketing for it. I was in the mood for a nice fantasy epic, and I thought they delivered. It's a wonderful action adventure comedy that is really smartly written and excellently paced, in my opinion, too. So yeah, it's a shame that this did not do well commercially, because critically, I mean, it was lauded, but yeah, Sally Chat, we'll see. But I highly encourage, if any of these movies on my list, I highly encourage people to check this one out because it deserves to be, because it's definitely being overlooked, chat. And yeah, it's a shame, but it's a great movie. Great movie. Moving on from that shit, and this is, I have to admit, this is a movie I had a few concerns about, especially because of the previous film in this franchise. But I walked away really enjoying Evil Dead Rise, chat. And of course, the last Evil Dead movie we got was Evil Dead 2013, which is pretty much like a remake of the first film. Didn't care for that for a variety of reasons, but this one I liked. One of the big reasons why I like this movie, it's like, hey, we're going to kind of move away from the typical setting in which a lot of Evil Dead films have been set in. Not every single Evil Dead film, but like a lot of them. We're going to move away from the woods, the cabin setting, and let's set it in like a whole new environment. Let's set it in a city. Let's set it in an apartment building. And I think that definitely worked. That definitely made it more fresh, created some cool scenarios for horror. But you also just had a great cast of characters. This family being just ripped apart by a deadite infection. Listen, this movie doesn't care. It's like, hey, you got kids? Fuck your kids. It doesn't matter. We're gonna kill them in all sorts of horrific ways. And so this film feels like it has stakes. And you feel bad for a lot of the characters, which are being turned to deadites and being mutilated throughout the course of this movie. And you get these great sequences, these great horror sequences that look like painful, and then they're grisly, and it's a gory, sloppy, mushy, goopy horror film, chat. And if you're in for that, then I think you're going to really enjoy this film, especially if you were dissatisfied with the previous Evil Dead 2013. Just felt like we're just kind of going through the rigmarole, just going through the motions again. It's the same shit. Maybe a couple differences, but overall, it's the same stuff, just with more unlikable characters, And it shows like, hey, this series can continue on even without, which, and I'm saying this as someone who loves Evil Dead and loves Ash Williams, but this series can continue on without Ash Williams. I was like, hey, that's cool. And so I'm hoping this was a critical success and a commercial success. And so they're going to keep making these movies. So I'm excited to see where they want to set this with the next movie. Let's maybe make that a big thing. Let's change the environment up. So I think that could be a lot of fun. So yeah, really like this film, despite my initial misgivings. And I walked away with it. Again, it's another, at least so far, chat, another strong year for horror, and Evil Dead Rise is definitely one of the reasons as to why it is so strong. Moving on from Evil Dead Rise, chat, we get to the third and last, at least for now, entry in the Guardians of the Galaxy series, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is also James Gunn's swan song for Marvel. I mean, infamously, he was, fired from the film years ago. And, they eventually brought him back in to direct this film, and I'm glad they did. And direct and write the movie, chat, because, listen, I was already like a big fan of the first Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. Love that movie. Did a review for it not too long ago. Kind of, reanalyze it, reappreciate it, if you will. Volume 2, there's things I like about the film. There's things I don't like about that movie. But Volume 3 kind of fixes a lot of the things I think I had issues with in the second film. One of the things that I really liked was the fact that James Gunn, despite, his humorous sensibilities as a filmmaker, I like that he made this a little darker. And where, we putting our characters in these like really kind of terrifying scenarios. And I like the focus on Rocket. Like the previous two Guardians films very much focused on Star-Lord. And they did some great stuff with Star-Lord, no doubt about it. But I like the focus on Rocket and his origins and his past and his original family and his connection with the new villain of this movie, the High Evolutionary. Loved all that. I mean, there are some disturbing scenes in this film, a lot of them involving cute animals, and that might be rough for people to watch. I liked it. I liked that the film went there and got dark. But I think the other thing that I really liked about this movie was just like, God, like all the actors in this film from, all the characters, honestly, from Drax to Nebula to Mantis to obviously to Rocket. Just they really did truly feel like a family. And we really got to see the end of several character arcs, and it really did feel like a bittersweet but still a loving goodbye to a lot of these Marvel characters. And I actually kind of walked away like was like kind of surprised as to how much I love this movie. And, and how, dark that James Gunn got with the material. And it's not like it, because, he does have a bit of a mean-spirited streak, which has worked for him a lot of the times. And I wouldn't describe this movie as mean-spirited. Like, everything that he does, which when he goes into that darker tone, I feel like is earned and is earnest, and I really like that. So no, Guardians 3. I think if you can make an argument, it's probably one of the strongest, post Endgame movies, Chad. I certainly would. Really liked it. And I think the other thing that helped this movie is that it's very insular. It's pretty much just focused on the Guardians themselves. It's not busying itself trying to set up a spin-off movie or trying to set up a sequel or connect it to like the multiverse saga. I mean, anything that they do mention about the greater MCU is things that the Guardians have been involved in previously. So obviously the first two movies and the events of Infinity War and Endgame. Outside of that, you can go into this movie and say, hey, have you seen Infinity War and Endgame and the previous two Guardians films and the holiday special? Then, hey, you're good. You're pretty much good. So I think that is also in itself like really refreshing for people who might have been tired of just the world building, and maybe you can argue the sloppy world building of the multiverse saga. And so I certainly like that, and that's why I think this is one of the best movies of the year so far. One of the best comic book movies of the year. And a lot of people, hey, for this next one, a lot of people might say, like, hey, this is even better than Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I may not think that, but I think it's still a great film, and that is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, like so many other people. I love Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And again, I was like other people going like, you're going to make an animated Spider-Man movie, and it's from Sony? Really? Sony, who can't be trusted to make a live-action Spider-Man film on their own? I don't know. And I still, listen, I'll say this forever. I do not think Sony knew what they had within the Spider-Verse. I think because that budget was so low that it was kind of like a fluke. They're like, all right, let those filmmakers and let producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller, let them do what they want, whatever. We're concentrating on Venom. We're making a Morbius movie, okay? I mean, that's what we're dealing with here. Something that's much more serious, much better than that. But then I think because of the fact that Sony just did not interfere in the development of that original film, why it was so good to begin with, and of course it was a critical success, did well commercially. It wasn't a huge blockbuster. But I feel like because of the success of that movie, it made people super excited for this film to the point where, when this film came out, it became one of the biggest box office hits of the summer. Chad, surprisingly, one of the biggest box office hits of the summer. And I really enjoyed this film. This is a movie where I could tell. I said this during one of the first things I said for my review for this film. I could tell that the filmmakers and everyone involved, Phil Lord, Chris Miller, of course, the right producer of the movie, they got carte blanche to do whatever they wanted, And that comes across because it really does expand the world of the Spider-Verse. We go to all sorts of different, places, encounter a spider society that's literally trying to contain and control the multiverse. But at the same time, it does so much great character work. It builds up Miles Morales. It builds up, Gwen Stacy, Spider-Woman even more here, while also introducing us to other Spider people and introducing us to new villain. The Spot, chat. Like I am a sucker for D-list, super villains in comics. I just love those guys because they're all a bunch of schlubs and schmucks and fuck ups. And I love that they made the Spot, initially very comedic character, horrifying in this movie. I thought that was so cool. Such a great turn. And, if I have any criticism of the film, I do feel like the first third is not paced very well. I think the next 2/3 of the movie are infinitely better paced. And, it sadly, it's very much a part two. It's very much an Empire Strikes Back. Like, oh, what are we doing? It kind of just ends. But, they kind of already announced that this was split into two parts. You got Beyond the Spider-Verse coming out. They say next year. I don't think it's coming out next year. Basically because of all, sadly, I mean, one of the sad things that have come out of this movie, more knowledge about it is like a lot of the animators were horrifically overworked. And that's pretty disappointing and sad. But despite that, I still really like this movie a lot. I think it's a great movie, and I'm really looking forward to the third film in this trilogy or in this franchise. I mean, they're going to keep making these movies until we're sick of them. I'm not sick of them yet. Quite good. I think this is a great second entry. Again, for me, I still like Into the Spider-Verse more. I think this is a better paced story, but this does so many things right. And yes, it uses a nostalgia. I mean, all the different Spider people that's referencing, but the ways in which I feel like they use in the movie were quite fun. And a lot of them had storytelling importance. And so that was nice. It wasn't just member berries for the sake of member berries. It was like, no, we're actually having this be like a part of like a really fun gag, or it has importance to the narrative that we're telling. So that was nice. So yeah, Across the Spider-Verse, chat. Definitely one of my favorite movies of 2023 so far. And the last one so far, chat, the last film that I have on this list, well, the list will get bigger. Don't you worry, chat. Don't you worry. But the last movie I have on my list, it's actually a really recent film. And it's one that I've been encouraging people to check out. And that is Netflix's Nimona, which is an adaptation of a graphic novel, which takes place in this medieval sci-fi fantasy world. It's like, what if the Middle Ages, like the Ascended Middle Ages, just continued on for thousands of years? And we have this very insular kind of exclusive society that lives behind these walls. And they have this institute, this academy that trains knights to protect and to contain its citizens, right? You follow this main character voiced by Riz Ahmed, who is a commoner, who's becoming a knight, no one trusts him and things. He's basically set up in the movie. He's blamed for something that he does. And he eventually finds friendship with this character of Nimona, who is a shapeshifter, voiced by Chloe Grace Moretz. And I think she gives one of the best performances of her career as this character. I thought she did such a great job, and you love their dynamic in the movie. Also, this is Blue Sky Animations, technically their last film before they went defunct, before they were closed by Disney. You know, Blue Sky, which was a part of, 20th Century Fox. They were acquired in the 20th Century Fox acquisition, and Blue Sky was closed by Disney. And they dropped this film, apparently, because of the LGBTQ themes, which are present. But the thing about this movie that I like, because, again, I mentioned this in my review, you have all these companies, Disney, for instance, that anytime anytime they feature a gay character, it never comes across earnest. Where they'll like, hey, everyone, special announcement. We have our first gay character ever. It's always our first gay character ever. It's like, well, what are you talking about? You've had a lot of gay, but anyway. It's our first gay character ever, except they're tertiary, and they have like maybe 2 lines, and we can easily edit them out of the film when we put it in China, right? Because China doesn't like gays. And I hate shit like that. They're literally using gay people. I mean, you could apply that to anybody. Gay people, minorities, whatever. And they treat them like gimmicks. They treat them like props. And that really bothers me. In this movie, it's just like, yes, these characters are gay. Riz Ahmed's character is gay. But that's not the only thing that defines him. It's just a part of who he is, right? And I like that he's not used as a prop. There's other things about him that make him interesting and fun to follow. And, with the character of Nimona, a lot of people say, like, hey, she can definitely be interpreted as an allegory for trans characters. She's a gender-fluid character. Where she's like, well, like, one point in the movie, Riz Ahmed goes, like, well, you're a little girl, right? He's like, no, I'm Nimona. I mean, I might be something else, tomorrow. I'm just kind of how I'm feeling. And so I kind of like that, But it's not too in-your-face going, huh? It's subtle with it. And I'm like, more films should be like that, want to have those types of themes. So, like, use this. Use this as a template, as an example. And I think it's great. I really enjoyed this movie quite a bit, and I hope people check out, Blue Skies. They're the last film, because it does a lot right, and it gets dark. It gets really dark, chap. And it has some sweet. I mean, the trailers don't indicate this. The trailer's like, hey, it's like it's a an action adventure sci-fi fantasy romp, and it's like geared towards children. It's like they deal with a lot of heavy stuff in this movie. Some self-harm scenes in this film, which I thought were quite interesting. But again, I thought they were handled very well and does not feel exploitive. That was nice. Yeah, at the end of the day, I just really love these characters. I think it's a great kind of comeback, if you will, for Chloe Grace Moretz. So I feel like, I don't know, she's a lot of films I've seen her in over the last few years, I just haven't particularly cared for them. But for here, you're like, wow, really shows her immense talent. One of her best roles in a while. So yeah, chat, that's my list. So we have again Nimona, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Evil Dead Rise, Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves, Scream 6, and Megan. But again, my list could change, get some more films on it as we get closer to the end of the year. But at this point, these are my favorites. I don't even know how many I had. Well, it was like by less than 10. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Just 7 right now, chat. But again, I'm sure I'm going to have many, many more. What about you guys? What are some of your favorite movies of 2023? What are some of the best movies of 2023? And what do you think of my list? I'm curious. I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and I want to take the time to tell you about my Patreon, Class in the Glass, which offers hundreds of film commentaries and video reactions to numerous movies, TV shows, and cartoons. If you're a fan of shows like Batman the Animated Series and Avatar The Last Airbender, or films like Aliens and Raiders of the Lost Ark, my Patreon is the platform for you. Currently, I'm doing a subathon to reach 75 subs on the platform. If we hit 75 subs, we'll be able to start voting on the next edited YouTube reaction, which will include actual clips and scenes from the movies and shows I comment over. Choose from such films as Fire and Ice, Masters of the Universe, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, or Spawn. Subscribing at any tier level is appreciated, and feel free to give feedback at any time. Thank you again for watching the video, and see you next time.